age where our digital lives are lived in squares owned and operated by a handful of private companies, a single critical question looms. Who gets to decide what is acceptable speech? Is the practice of deplatforming a necessary shield to protect society from harm, or is it a paternalistic form of censorship that stifles the very foundation of free expression? This is a moral minefield that sits at the intersection of online safety and fundamental human rights. Today, this analysis will not take a side. Instead, it will dive deep into the history, the undeniable effectiveness, the shocking unintended consequences, the legal minefield this practice is creating, and a new technology that might change everything. The goal is to provide a comprehensive view of a debate that has fractured public discourse. The term deplatforming or no platforming has gained significant traction in the digital age, yet its origins predate the internet by decades. It is defined as a boycott on an individual or group by removing the platforms used to share their information or ideas. The concept originated as a tactic used by activists in the 1970s and 80s to prevent individuals promoting hate speech from speaking at physical venues. This historical precedent is evident in policies like the British National Union of Students' No Platform policy, established as early as 1973, and university speaker bans in the United States dating back to the 1940s. This shows that the debate surrounding who is allowed to speak publicly is not a new one. Only the medium has changed. In the digital era, platforms may deplatform individuals for a variety of reasons, primarily to maintain a safe and respectful online environment. The key reasons for action include violating community guidelines, spreading harmful misinformation or hate speech, engaging in harassment or bullying, promoting illegal activities, or impersonation. The core tension lies in balancing these reasons with the upholding of a broad spectrum of ideas and opinions. To understand this tension, one can examine the high-profile case of Alex Jones and his organization, InfoWars. Jones's deplatforming provides a perfect case study for the profound and multifaceted effects of such an action. The timeline of his removal from major platforms was rapid and coordinated. On August 6, 2018, Facebook, Apple, YouTube, and Spotify simultaneously removed all content by Jones and InfoWars, citing policy violations and hate speech. The reasons provided included dehumanizing immigrants, Muslims, and transgender people, and glorification of violence. Later that month, Vimeo also removed all of his videos for violating its prohibitions on discriminatory and hateful content. This culminated in permanent bans from X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram, with additional removals from platforms like Live and Google Play for various violations, including the dissemination of COVID-19 misinformation. This systematic removal from mainstream platforms created a compelling before and after scenario, allowing for a data-driven analysis of the consequences. The primary argument in favor of deplatforming rests on its effectiveness in achieving its core objective: containing the spread of harmful ideas by limiting a speaker's audience and disrupting their economic model. The evidence suggests this method is highly successful as a short-term intervention. Research indicates that deplatforming leads to a drastic reduction in a figure's online attention and reach. A study found that after 12 months, online attention toward deplatformed influencers was reduced by an estimated 63% on Google and 43% on Wikipedia. The audience reachable by suspended users who migrate to alternative platforms drastically decreases, with a significant reduction in the average number of followers. The Alex Jones case serves as a prime example. After his ban from mainstream platforms, traffic to his InfoWars posts saw a decline by half. This demonstrates that while deplatforming may not eliminate content, it effectively contains its amplification to new audiences. In addition to audience contraction, deplatforming also functions as a powerful economic lever. Many online figures, particularly those who spread conspiracies and misinformation, operate as attention vendors, profiting from sensationalism fueled by platform algorithms. Deplatforming disrupts this business model through demonetization, which removes the ability to earn revenue from content. The disruption of these revenue streams has a significant impact on a figure's visibility, their ability to maintain a fan base, and their overall income. For instance, Milo Yiannopoulos reportedly claimed he became bankrupt after being deplatformed, showing the profound financial repercussions of losing access to a monetized platform. This effectiveness can be viewed as a form of demand-side intervention. The harm of misinformation is not solely the existence of the content itself, but its amplification to a wide, often unsuspecting audience. By removing the content from the mainstream algorithms and feeds, it is no longer being actively pushed to average users. This helps prevent exposure to harmful content before it can take hold, effectively containing the spread of narratives that could incite violence or public harm. Deplatforming also highlights an economic paradox inherent in the social media ecosystem. The very thing that makes deplatforming necessary, the algorithmic model that rewards sensationalism and misinformation, is the same system that makes these figures profitable. When a platform deplatforms a user, it demonstrates a willingness to sacrifice a monetizable, albeit harmful, content stream. This action proves the dominant role platforms play in the digital landscape and compels a critical evaluation of their power and accountability. The practice is not a root cause solution, but a reactive measure to a systemic, proactive problem. The quantitative data clearly demonstrates the significant drop-off in public attention and influence. The case for paternalism. The unintended consequences. Despite its effectiveness in reducing audience reach, deplatforming is not a silver bullet solution and carries significant, often unpredictable trade-offs. A central argument against the practice is that it does not kill controversial ideas, but rather forces them to grow in new, potentially more dangerous forms. This is often described as the Hydra effect. Cutting off one head of a Hydra causes two more to grow in its place. The theory suggests that deplatforming pushes users away from mainstream platforms and into alternative platforms where moderation is laxer. These fringe platforms, such as Gab, Getter, and Telegram, are often weakly regulated and poorly monitored. The migration of prominent figures to these spaces can have alarming consequences. The narrative darkens when examining the radicalization pipeline. Research on deplatformed users who migrated to Gab found that they tended to become both more active and more toxic after their suspension. This increase in toxicity is considered a possible indication of online radicalization, which could have negative impacts in the offline world, including real-world violence. A chilling example is the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter, who posted his anti-Semitic manifesto on Gab just before carrying out his attack. This demonstrates that while deplatforming may safeguard users on a mainstream platform, it can inadvertently contribute to the development of violent narratives in darker corners of the internet. Furthermore, deplatforming can contribute to the fragmentation of public discourse and the creation of insular echo chambers. When individuals and institutions refuse to engage with what they perceive as pernicious ideas, it prevents a genuine understanding of the political other and contributes to social polarization. This refusal to listen across emotionally fraught differences is a losing strategy that makes the political crisis worse, feeding the very populism it seeks to contain. A closer look at user behavior on different alternative platforms reveals a crucial nuance. While users on Gab were found to become more toxic, a separate study on users who migrated from X, formerly Twitter, to Getter found that they were not associated with a substantial increase in toxicity over time. In fact, the research found that users who were active on both platforms were more toxic on X, where they could engage in abusive cross-ideological interactions with political opponents. This suggests that the problem is not simply deplatforming, but the specific social and psychological environment of the destination platform. Gab's free speech haven mentality may foster more direct vitriol, while Getter, where users are often ideologically aligned, may limit the opportunity for the abusive engagement that fuels toxicity. This illustrates that deplatforming does not just push users to a new platform. It fundamentally changes their environment, influencing their behavior in complex, unpredictable ways. The practice of deplatforming can also be used by a speaker to amplify their own populist narrative. When a person is removed from a platform, it can be framed as an act of moral opprobrium or internal progressive bullying by Twitter mobs. This creates a powerful victimhood narrative that resonates with their followers and provides a new reason for outrage. The act of deplatforming itself becomes a political statement that seemingly validates the speaker's ideas as so threatening they must be put under quarantine. The deplatforming doesn't just affect the speech. It creates a new story about the speaker, one that often strengthens their base and provides fertile soil for growing populist movements. The legal showdown: whose rules rule? The deplatforming debate is a legal minefield, highlighting a fundamental clash between different legal and philosophical frameworks. In the United States, the First Amendment to the Constitution protects the freedom of speech, but this protection is not absolute. Critically, the First Amendment principally constrains government regulation of private speech, and generally does not apply to restrictions imposed by private entities like social media companies. This distinction is rooted in the legal concept of a public forum versus a private forum. Public forums, such as city parks or streets, are government-owned and subject to strict scrutiny regarding speech restrictions. Social media platforms, however, are considered private businesses with the right to enforce their own terms of service, as they are not traditional forums for public discourse. This principle provides private companies with broad discretion to moderate content as they see fit. In stark contrast, the European Union's Digital Services Act, DSA, establishes a powerful new regulatory framework that directly governs the behavior of social media platforms. The DSA applies to services that have a substantial connection to the EU, regardless of where the company is based. It requires platforms to put safeguards in place to remove content that is found to be illegal or hateful. A U.S. House of Representatives report warns that the DSA poses a foreign censorship threat to American free speech. The report argues that because major platforms typically have one set of global rules, and because the DSA carries severe penalties, up to 6% of a company's global revenue, platforms are strongly incentivized to apply the stricter European standards to American users. This creates a global regulatory tug-of-war, where a foreign regulatory framework could compel behavior from U.S. companies that the U.S. government could not. This philosophical clash between the U.S. legal system's prioritization of freedom from government censorship and the EU's view of a right to a safe online environment is being played out in an economic context, where the strictest standard may prevail. The DSA's framework also introduces an evolving definition of illegal content. The U.S. House report highlights that the DSA goes beyond illegal content to encompass legal content that has negative effects on civic discourse and electoral processes, or is misleading or deceptive. This new subjective standard raises concerns that it could expand the scope of moderation to include speech that is perfectly legal under U.S. law, blurring the line between harmful and state-disapproved speech. For example, a statement about electric cars that is a protected opinion in the U.S. might fall under the DSA's ambiguous category of misleading content, if interpreted by an EU regulator. Legal principle: the First Amendment to the Constitution protects against government censorship. Governing body: U.S. government, which generally cannot compel private platforms to moderate speech. Scope of application: the First Amendment primarily applies to government-owned spaces, public forums. Private platforms are considered private property with the right to set their own terms of service. The road ahead: decentralization. And the final word: the challenges posed by deplatforming have spurred innovation and the emergence of a potential new frontier: decentralized social networks, DSNs. DSNs, such as Farcaster, offer a direct response to the problems of centralized platforms by leveraging technologies like blockchain. The core principles of these networks are user data ownership and censorship resistance. Instead of relying on a single corporate entity for governance, DSNs function as decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, where users vote on platform rules and policies. This makes content moderation a reflection of community values rather than a centralized authority's whim, offering a potential escape from the Bannemer dilemma. Furthermore, the legal and philosophical clash between the United States and the European Union has created a global regulatory tug-of-war, with the potential to blur the lines between harmful and state-disapproved speech. The long-term solution to the challenges of online discourse likely lies in a multi-pronged portfolio approach that extends beyond platform moderation alone. This includes supporting local journalism to counter the decline of civic engagement, implementing media literacy education to help individuals discern fact from fiction, and promoting other structural reforms. So, deplatforming: It is a double-edged sword, a necessary shield for some, and a tool of censorship for others. But what if the real debate isn't whether to ban or not to ban, but whether our digital society has been built on a foundation that is fundamentally broken? The future of free expression might not be found in fighting over who controls the hammer, but in building a world where the banner doesn't exist at all.